Hello, Solarah here. I am here to give you your full moon in Gemini tarot astrology Ascension report. Okay, so if you've never tuned in with me before, this is where I delve into the astrology chart for the full moon or the new moon, but in this instance the full moon. We're not going to look at all the planets. I don't tend to dive too deeply into the slower moving planets unless I've been called to go there, because these energies are from every fortnight when we have a full or a new moon. There's not oftentimes much movement, so we really do focus on mainly the inner planets. So I use a mix of astrology, tarot, numerology, and channeling of messages to share with the collective what I'm being shown, and my readings are very much geared specifically towards what these energies are helping to assist us with on a personal and a collective level through this ascension. Okay, so thank you for being here. Thank you if you've come over from my other channel, Solarah Speaks. Thank you if you are a returning subscriber, whether you've been here from the beginning or you've joined somewhere along the way. And if this is your first time with me, a very warm welcome. Please remember to do the YouTube thing, to like, to share, to comment, and to subscribe. Let's get into it. So I was just sharing on my other channel, in my most recent reading, how I was taking a bit of a stroll earlier on tonight and was moon gazing, and there was a moonbow around the moon, for one thing, because it's gotten colder here in the UK, and there was also this pink glaze that it wasn't there all the time, because at first I thought it was pollution, and I mean, it could have been, but there's still, even with that being said, there's a message, because when I spent more time tuning into the energy, I also saw like these two hands holding the moon. It was really quite beautiful, a beautiful moment. But what I was sharing in my reading on Solarah Speaks is that it feels like we are, as I record this, the moon is in Taurus. It's not yet in Gemini, but it feels like we are presently receiving a lot of rainbow body or rainbow bridge activations, those activations that are designed to help put our energy fields back into proper alignment so that we can function the way we were supposed to function divinely, and that is that we are here to be able to be bridges that allow for cosmic energies or heavenly energies to flow through our energy centers and to be anchored into the earth grids. We are here to be able to pull in divine energy into the earth planes. And we're also, it's a two-way communication system, right? But the main way I feel like we're receiving activations that are coming down through our energy fields to be anchored into the new earth, okay? Not for nothing, we are moving into this full moon in Gemini. Gemini energy is the Magician, and it's the Lover's card in the tarot. So Gemini energy will almost always speak to our divine contracts. It will speak about our re-entry into divine ways of being and living and existing. But Gemini energy will also always tackle our mindsets and our ability to expand our consciousness, our mental consciousness, enough to reach the energies that we need in order to go higher. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into the chart. So when the moon reaches its fullness on Monday morning, the sun will be at 4 degrees Sagittarius and the moon will be at 4 degrees Gemini. Okay, so Sagittarius and Gemini energy are both energies that are here to cater in different forms of expansion, and they're both signs where the planets that rule them are very much planets of expansion, but they work in different ways. And they work and express themselves in different signs in different ways, because Mercury is a ruling planet, is a planet that rules Gemini, but Mercury also rules Virgo. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and also co-rules Pisces. So the way these planets express themselves through these different signs and the purpose they have is a little bit different, but it doesn't it doesn't negate the fact that they're both planets of expansion, and especially when we're dealing with Mercury's place in Gemini and Jupiter's place in Sagittarius. It's all about helping us to grow, to expand, like I said before. So Mercury, as it works through Gemini, it's there to break us out of any and every mental prison that has stopped us from accessing truth. Now, the thing about how Mercury expresses itself through Gemini is that it doesn't organize all the information that it is exposing us to. It just gives us free reign and full exposure to all the energies that our minds have we've been limited and we've been programmed out of through the constructs of the matrix, through the programs of the matrix. So Mercury just blows shit wide open. So now we have full access to everything they said we couldn't have. And this is why that Gemini energy can be, in its shadow aspect, it can be double-minded, because if that energy is not properly grounded, it can take us all over the place, and it can make us not feel like we have a place to settle. And this is where Mercury in Virgo comes in and starts to help us to organize and to use discernment and to ground and to categorize that very, very broad mental energy that Mercury begins to help us access through Gemini, right? In the same way, Jupiter works with the planet Mercury to take the energies that Gemini has opened us up to that Mercury has opened us up to through Gemini, and then Virgo has helped us to organize. Jupiter comes along a few signs later and helps us to begin to take that expansion of our mind and that expansion of our consciousness and begin to walk it out and to live it, and even begin to create personal philosophies that align with this higher level of expansion, right? Jupiter is also, of course, a planet that deals with the rewards, and even, to some extent, which we don't talk about enough, it deals with also dishing out the karmic justice that Saturn has ruled. Jupiter is the giver of the justice, following, the ruling that Saturn decides. They work together to maintain law and order, right? So, with the Sun in Sagittarius at 4 degrees and the Moon in Gemini at 4 degrees, we know that something is helping us to expand. But with this 4 energy, the 4 is in the tarot, the card of the Emperor, but not for nothing, the 4-4 energy is interesting, because it is, for me, a number that speaks of the presence of the Divine Mother and her protection over a process. The 4-4 energy can also speak of angelic intervention and protection. And the reason this is so interesting to me is because Sagittarius is the sign through which we begin to connect with a lot of our angelic DNA and activations and higher states of being. Now, out of all of the signs of the zodiac, if you take Sagittarius and you break it down into gematria, you take each letter and you ascribe it to the number that, Gematria breaks it down into, and you add it up, numerologically, Sagittarius is the only sign of the zodiac that breaks down into 144. So when you think about that, there's something about the Sagittarius energy that helps to connect or activate the 144 frequency. Okay, so because this is a frequency game. So what I'm feeling is happening, and this happens every year. I just said this in my Solarah Speaks reading. Every year through the sign of Sagittarius, we have the opportunity to go higher in our frequency based upon our ability to ground in the activations that have come through, especially through the galactic gateways that begin to open right before the 8-8 portal. The Sagittarius gateway is what allows us to begin to actualize what we would consider to be our supernatural abilities, but really they are just our divine birthrights. Now, because we are going through an ascension and the matrix is rapidly descending as we ascend, or as we rise back up into our divine truth, which is really us climbing back up into our true divine frequency, we are unlocking many aspects of our multidimensional truth and reality that we've been lied to and told is not possible. Now, out of all of the energies of the zodiac, which one is going to bust us out of that lie? Well, that would probably be Gemini, right? And then Virgo is going to come in and help us to organize ourselves so we can begin to live in order with this newfound truth. This is the mercurial energy. Well, then Sagittarius says, okay, guys, now you believe it, let's walk it. So now the Sagittarius energy is helping us to walk in our higher nature. This full moon is dispelling energies that would stop us from being able to walk in our higher nature and embody the angelic activations that especially were coming through, the DNA activations and the angelic activations that were coming through the Scorpio season window. You see, whenever you're going through an energy that feels especially heavy, especially with the water signs. The water signs will take you to places. Cancer will do it, Scorpio will do it, and won't Pisces do it? They all will do it. And the reason is because they are often preparing our emotional fields for activations that want to come into our realities in real time, whether it's in the next cycle or it's preparing the foundation for what's coming in the future. It doesn't matter. The water signs help us to activate our waters in order to birth a new material reality, and as such, they can be very turbulent. It can feel very turbulent to the waters of our soul. And so this is ultimately what we've been going through. This is why Scorpio season has been so intense. And Scorpio energy is always intense, but it's been especially intense this year because it has been challenging us to really deal with those unclaimed, repressed parts of our shadows in order that we could access the highest reality of who we are. Because for as long as we are not claiming, or for as long as we were not claiming our lower selves, there was still a part of us that was living in self-rejection and shame. And the irony of that is, if you don't connect with and take back all aspects of self, including your lower self or your shadow, or those parts of yourself that you rejected and repressed because the matrix told you to, you actually cannot access your highest level of divine truth. You have to go there. You have to go down into the underworld to come back up. You have to do that in order to activate what my guides were calling the Phoenix codes, or the Phoenix activations. And so Scorpio took us there in order for us to be able now, through Sagittarius season, to begin to fly. Sagittarius energy is when you begin to fly. okay? Because the Jupiter energy, the Sagittarian energy, it doesn't like to be caged, but it's also the energy that, you know, in regular astrological speak, they like to say that, oh, Jupiter, Sagittarius, the sign and the planet of travel, and they keep it as being like this physical matrix thing. And the truth of the matter is that Jupiter and Sagittarius are here to help you fly. They're here to help you plug back into your multi-dimensional ability to literally travel. Okay, utilizing the power of your frequency and the calibration of your emotions. This is why the water signs are so important in preparing us for these energies. So, to go back to what's happening when the moon reaches its fullness on Monday, this 4-4 energy. Whenever we see a 4, it's also a number that speaks about establishment. There is something through this full moon window that's being established. And because we're dealing with Sagittarius and Gemini energy, there is something being established for our, to further push us out of a rut. And the rut that we've been stuck in is largely a mental one, because this is what Gemini energy deals with. So if we're looking at, you know, where the sun and the moon are in terms of the minor arcana cards, we've got the 8 of Wands for the sun, and we've got the 8 of Swords for the moon. So these are cards that seem to be very opposing in energy, right? The 8 of Swords is all about being so stuck in our own minds that we make it a prison that we can't get past and out of. And yet the 8 of Wands is all about pushing past everything to move forward. Quick travel, quick messages, love arrows being shot. Those are some of the energies of the 8 of Wands, right? So there's something being established here with these two energies that feel very oppositional, and yet they're working together because, you know, in order for it to be a full moon, they have to be sister signs, right? So this Sagittarius energy, through the power of the sun, is pushing us out of something. Now, what is it pushing us out of? Well, the 8 of Swords are all of the mental entrapments that are actually a result of the mind control programs of the Matrix, or what you could say MK Ultra, because we've all been MK Ultra'd. It's just to what degree? There are the beings who were actually taken through the experiments and physically dragged through rituals, but that occurred in order that those very same things that they learned from doing that could be enacted upon the public in more covert ways that were mostly mental and emotional manipulation, if that makes sense. So in other words, we've all had our reality and our narratives controlled by the matrix powers that were, as well as our gateway system, because we are energetically full of gates. And I talked about this, I may have touched upon this in another tarot astrology reading, but I've definitely gone into this on Solarah Speaks and my other readings, as well as if you are with me on Substack. I've been talking about you know, how we function as a gateway system. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise for those of you who are awake, because even the report, the declassified reports that came out in 2020 by the CIA, it was the title of that project was the Gateway Project, because they're very aware of how we function. Now, this is important to know because you are a series of gates that are designed to connect with different stargates. But when you are mentally programmed into lower states, especially fear, guilt, and shame, or what I like to call the trauma trifecta, which are the vibrations that any abuser is going to use to keep the control of the narrative of the victim they want underneath their dominance. When you've been programmed into that state, it's a mental state. And in that way, we were all programmed by the matrix, its rules, its systems, its regulations, the policing social state. We were all programmed into family, all of the ways that like these programs and spells infiltrated every layer of our reality without us even knowing, to the point where we were adhering and not only adhering, but we were giving to the energies. We were complicit in the propagation of these energies without even knowing it at the time. Living through it unconsciously, thinking that this was life, right? So we were all being, to some extent, mind controlled. We were being manipulated through fear, guilt, and shame to keep a frequency that kept us from climbing higher in order to access our divine truth, our power, to understand and overstand who we actually are. So I say all of that because there feels like there's a shadow energy that's exiting through this full moon in Gemini that has been responsible for keeping us mentally enslaved, and therefore out of our ability to rise, out of our ability to travel, out of our ability to fly. Okay, now the 4-degree mark is also to do with Cancer energy. It is a degree of Cancer, astrologically speaking. So here we see again, there's some kind of foundation, and it's an emotional one because we're dealing with Cancer. It's an emotional foundation that is being, a new emotional foundation that's being set as the old emotional foundation is completely gutted. Now, I was just speaking about this, like I said in my other reading on Solarah Speaks, where the Cancerian energy is really important for how our emotional energy is used to feed the Earth's grids, whether those are the true grids and the ley lines of the Earth or the false grid system that they enacted to constantly feed off of our lower energies like the fear, guilt, shame. This is why they had to keep us in those states constantly, to feed their fake grids, to keep their matrix system alive. The Cancerian energy is really important for the programming of our waters, the programming of our emotional resonance. And whatever our emotional resonance is programmed into determines what is going to be the energetic grid system of our Earth plane. And so I say all of that because there is something that is occurring, an activation, a grounding, a removal. All of this feels like it's happening at once of the old world grid that supported and was nourished off of our fear, off of our guilt, off of our shame. It's being completely dismantled and taken apart through this full moon. And simultaneously what's happening is that it feels like there is a grounding of the presence of what is needed for the new Earth grid to go forth. And I shared on the community board here and on my other channel a writing that had come through about a week ago. It was called "The Divine Mother is Risen." And she has. She really has. And I'm feeling like this full moon in Gemini is kind of solidifying that truth. The Divine Mother, her principles are returning. Her seasons, her cycles, the contracts that connect us with our truth, our divine contracts, our ability to be beings on this earth plane that aren't just here surviving and tuned out of our godly settings because we've become slaves on the very, in the very earth that was a gift to us. Right? We weren't sent here. The original plan wasn't for us to be here to be slaves, and the Divine Mother energy is back to help us to to get back everything that was taken from us. And I really do feel like through this full moon in Gemini, something is being established in that sense, while something is being completely ripped out. And what's being ripped out are all of the mind control programs and the fuckery that supported our enslavement. Yes. Okay, so we have Mercury in Sagittarius at 24 degrees. So Mercury has gone ahead of the sun. So Mercury is, spirit speaking to us. And I believe it's at the end of Sagittarius season where we begin, we have our last Mercury retrograde of the year, I believe. So Mercury will probably be coming back. I don't know how far back Mercury is going to go, but I do believe Mercury will be pulling back through Sagittarius energy at some point. But right now, Mercury has gone ahead and is at the 24 degrees. So 24 is a Piscean degree. So Mercury right now, this is how Spirit speaks to us, especially about our own magic and our own abilities. So we got Mercury in Sagittarius speaking to us about something to do with the age of Pisces, something to do with the closing up, with the wrapping up of something. But it's also speaking about almost like a rapid departure out of this place. And it's interesting because the rapid departure out of this place is occurring while Saturn is still at that 0 degree mark, moving forward. And if you've been rolling with me for the last few readings, while Saturn has been at the 0 degree point, it retrograded back through the 0 degree point. And when it went direct, stationed to go direct a couple of weeks ago, it was still at the 0 degrees. So we've had this pulling back through 0 degrees of Saturn, and now we've got this going forward. And what I've been saying about this 0 degree, when Saturn entered 0 degrees of Pisces, it opened a door. The 0 degree point for me serves as a portal, an access point. Saturn has been holding this door open for us, this portal open for us, which in many ways is our exit. Now, the way out of the matrix, if you're looking at it from the zodiac wheel, is through Pisces. It's why when we get to the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces, we come into all of the hidden enemies, because now you're almost there, you're at the door. And so the enemies that come into your pathway to try to stop you and keep you back, they have to be hidden. They can't be obvious, right? Because if it were obvious, it'd be easy to get over that hurdle and to move forward. So this is partly why the 12th house is a house of hidden enemies and karma and karmic contracts, because they are the very things that you need to bust out of to move out of the matrix, that want to come in but under heavy disguise. So I say all of that because the Piscean energy, it is our doorway out of the matrix. And so Saturn's been holding this energy open for us. It's moving all the way to the end of this 0 degree mark, and it's going to be moving very soon into 1 degrees. But it's still at the 0 degree mark as we have this full moon in Gemini, and as Mercury is at 24 degrees, a Piscean degree, because Mercury is speaking to us once again about the mindsets that would limit us in any way from moving forward. That's a very big energy that's coming through right now. If you've been vibing with me on my Substack for my word for your day with Solarah, which is a free message I've been sharing as my gift to the collective, then you'll know that this was what was coming up in the message earlier on today that I posted. It was all about how this graduation into this next phase is going to require that we shift our consciousness and we surrender certain ways of thinking and being that may have served to help us ascend so far. But moving forward, we have to go higher. Okay, so this is what Mercury, it feels like, is helping us do. It's helping us to get the fuck on out of here. But the way out of here is through that Piscean portal, but it's through our minds, first and foremost, and negating every which way we are still imprisoned or beholden to matrix logic that would seek, like a hidden enemy, to keep us out of completely flying. Because remember, Sagittarius energy is here to help us fly again. Because many of us can fly. I'm sure you know that. You had wings, right? You have wings. Some of you have angelic energy, dragon energy, all manner of what they call supernatural energies on this plane. They're only supernatural because they cut you off of them through their energy fuckery. But the truth is, many of y'all can do things that you've been told aren't true. And for as long as you hold on to these matrix lies that tell you that you can't do these things, then you're not going to make it out of here. So it's like the Mercury in Sagittarius at 24, it wants to blow your mind. It wants to blow your mind with this, helping you to reconnect again with the fact that you can fly, that you can travel, that you can move and do these interdimensional things. It wants to reconnect you with your divine supernatural truth and tune you out of the matrix fuckery and lies. That's what this Mercury energy is wanting to do with the sun and the moon, right? So then we've got Venus still chilling in Libra. I don't know why it feels like Venus has just been moving really slow to me since she came out of retrograde. I know it's like a subjective thing, it's not an objective truth, but I still feel like she's just moving really slowly. But anyway, we got Venus in Libra at 21 degrees. Okay, so Venus is all about helping us to begin to ground beauty back into our realities based upon the fact that we have a right to that. Venus believes we have a right to living beautifully because Venus is one of the ambassadors of the Divine Mother in that sense, right? So we've got Venus in Libra. We're talking about Libra. We're talking about the equalizing of fields. We're talking about the marriage of duality. And we're talking about something coming to an end because we got the 21 degrees. And not for nothing, 21 is an astrological degree of Sagittarius. So we got more Sagittarian energy, peeking through here with the Venusian placement. But 21 in the tarot is connected to the World card. So it speaks of endings. There's some kind of ending that is, it feels like there's an ending of separation between heart and mind, or between anything that caused us to be at war within self. Anything that caused us to live in ways that, robbed us of our right to live beautifully because of the war that was waging within self. And again, that war that was waging within self was a result of the mental fuckery of the matrix, because they needed us in that state emotionally so that they could feed their grids our lower emotional state. So it feels like through this Venusian energy, again, there's some kind of ending coming, okay? An ending to the duality, to the fighting, to the war energies, to the energies that kept us at war with self, to the energies that had us using our own minds to silence our hearts. That's what the Matrix had us constantly doing. It had us programming our minds to betray our own hearts. And it feels like through this Venus in Libra at 21 degrees, there's an ending coming through to that. There's an ending to those energies that did that, and also limited us out of our divine truth and our supernatural abilities, because we were living in such grand schism of self all the time. Okay, so we have Mars just entering Sagittarius, just behind the sun, right? So Mars and the sun are kind of, they're in a slight conjunction. They're like 2 degrees apart when this is happening. So Mars is coming behind the sun, and Mars is almost like, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? You go ahead and you light this place up, but what do you need me to do? You know, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to bust open? Because, you know, Mars is that energy of destruction, but it's destruction when we're looking at it from an ascended state. I had a spark go up from my candle as I talk about Mars. I love you, Mars. It's that planet that helps us to get back what is ours. Mars is very connected to our willpower, and in its ascended energy, it's all about fighting for what is right. And that Mars energy does not like injustice. It doesn't like it in its ascended state. So it feels like this Mars at 2 degrees is kind of, it doesn't feel very aggressive. It feels like it's kind of checking out the scene and waiting to take its cues from the sun almost. It's kind of what I'm feeling here, you know. So the 2 degree energy, it is the degree of Taurus. Okay, so this is all about the reclamation of what is ours for our energy fields in order that we can fly and soar again. It's in Sagittarius, right? The 2 degrees is also the High Priestess. I'm getting a very, like, Mars is scoping out. It's like casing the joint. It's casing the joint to help to underpin the energies that are going. And it'll be interesting to look at, because I have not looked ahead. I never really do. I haven't looked ahead at the new moon in Scorpio chart and where Mars is going to be then, but it will be very interesting to see if Mars has overtaken the sun at that point in terms of its journey through Sagittarius, because right now it feels like I said, it's casing the joint, it's doing its reconnaissance work, it's in High Priestess mode, you know. So, you know, that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting from Mars. Something is coming together. You know, something is always coming together with the twos. It's not fully formed yet, but it's coming together. So it's like Mars is putting together its strategies so that when it's time to bust something out, bust people out of a cage, it's going to be ready. It's going to be ready. It's not quite time for some of the explosive energy that it's going to bring later on. That's really what I'm getting with this this full moon with Mars at 2 degrees in Sagittarius. Now we have Jupiter in Taurus at 7 degrees. And when I was out and about earlier and I saw that beautiful moon bow and the pink glaze and the moon being held by 2 hands, or at least that's what it looked like, the moon was at about 11 or 12 degrees Taurus. And so it had just been in conversation with Jupiter. It was just moving away from that. And so Jupiter has been hanging out in Taurus for a minute. It's retrograding. And, you know, with Jupiter being the star planet of this full moon and the season, because it rules Sagittarius, Jupiter has something to say, right? And Jupiter at 7 degrees Taurus, for one thing, that 7 degree mark is always interesting to me because 7 is a bringer of divine order, and 7 is a number that's connected to Saturn. So this again is showing me that we are at a prime time where there are karmic rewards and whippings that are coming through this full moon window. That doesn't mean come Monday people are going to get their rewards and their whippings, you know, on that day. But it does mean that more of that energy is coming forth. It's coming forth. And it's a matter, it's so much deeper than a personal vendetta. It is fucking divine order. It's time to put things back into order. The Divine Mother is back. It's time to put everything back in her home in order from when these intruders came and just like ransacked the place. It's time. It's time to give back to the people what it was that was taken. And that's in every level. It's not just material. It's your energy. It's the knowledge of who you are. It's the exposure of all of the shit that has been keeping you in a ransacked state while you thought that this was life. All of that must begin to come forth. And it feels like this Jupiter in Taurus at 7 degrees is allowing for that, because you were robbed. We were robbed. And it's time for not only for those robbers to kick rocks, but it's time for us to see all the ways they fucked us over. And it's also time for the ones who decided that it was a better idea for them to side with them and against us in order to get a few material trinkets. It's time for them to be exposed too. It's time for all that shit to come down. And this is what I really do feel, this Jupiter in Taurus at 7 degrees is assisting, but it's not even just, 7 degrees on the day of the full moon. It's been in conversation with the moon as the moon was in Taurus earlier on today, and these rainbow activations are pouring through. And the rainbow activations, again, that Taurus energy, it's connected to your Taurus field, your biofield, your energy field that contains all of your divine resources and your gates. It's time for you to get all that stuff back. It's time for the order to be restored, whereby you have that access to your rights, your divine birthrights again. So 7 degrees, not for nothing. It is the 5 of Pentacles, right? It's the 5 of Pentacles. So we are talking here about, we're talking here again about the revelation also of these lack states and these energies that the moon in Gemini, these energies that were purposely, the way that this energy was purposely wielded to put us in mental states that connected us into lack in order to feed these narratives that kept this false matrix system alive. It's time for us to get restitution, but it's also time for the restitution to come by way of exposure. So we've got Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces. It's moving towards the end of that 0 degree mark. So still holding the door open for us to jump the fuck out of Dodge, while closing the door behind at these other fuckers that are trying to come along, but they don't got the frequency or the consciousness to go any further. Too short for this ride. You gotta have a frequency this high to get on this ride. And you can't steal it from anyone else. You see, these fuckers got so used to stealing shit, they thought that they'd be able to steal or buy their way into Ascension, but that's not how it works. So everything is being unplugged, and energetically these beings are scrambling, trying to get to the exit also, but you can't get to the exit if you didn't do the work, right? Okay, so that's probably where I'm going to end. I didn't want to make this too long. I'm kind of tired also. The North Node, I'll take a quick look at that. It is still at 22 degrees Aries, which is very interesting because this, again, whenever we're dealing with 22, it is a Capricorn energy astrologically speaking, but even just the number itself speaks of partnerships and contracts. Okay, so the Aries energy is the energy that liberates us into our godhood. It's where we get back our crown also. It's where we take back the authority over who we are as divine beings. It's where we take back our I am truth. And so this full moon energy, there are negotiations that are happening in regards to that. As it pertains to our material contracts, both the material contracts that have kept us out of this, but also the new earth material contracts or agreements that must come into place now, because we do have real agreements with the earth, real contracts with the earth, and those contracts have to do with loving her, nurturing her, propagating her in her beauty, also so that we can then pass it on to our descendants. Those are the true agreements we have, the true material contracts we have with the earth, and every material contract we have should reflect this, should reflect our divine reverence for the earth that sustains us, for ourselves and for one another. And so through this full moon window, there is a shift in consciousness that is happening in order for us to reconnect with this truth and begin to live in ways where our material contracts with the earth that sustains us come back into divine alignment, and we can walk in divine integrity. Okay, so not for nothing, this 22 degrees is also speaking about the setting of something to do not only with material contracts, but contracts that are concerning divine partnerships. And because we're dealing with the Gemini and energy, it's a full moon in Gemini, that also is to do with divine unions, divine partnerships, divine contracts. So I spoke about this also in Solarah Speaks. The ways that they tried to manipulate our energy and shut our gateway system down in our energy field so we wouldn't align with our divine contracts. That is coming to a close, but it's not only coming to a close. All of this stuff is about to start becoming exposed over the next couple of years. People will start to know who they really are. But what's also occurring is that the gateway systems between divine partners that have been locked down and divine unions have been blocked from coming into being because they couldn't access their shared stargate, that is being undone at this point too. Okay, so we are getting back access not only to our own individual gateway system, but our ability to travel, to fly, and to connect with the gateway systems of the cosmos that required us to climb back in frequency in order to get that access. And we couldn't do it while we were living in low, disempowered states of being devalued and accepting that and cycling through the trauma trifecta of fear, guilt, and shame that was feeding their false grids. So this is what's happening now. We are actively undoing this, and we are actively, as we rise into our higher frequential truth, re-accessing what it is that is our birthright when we live at that place. So that's what I have for you. I hope that this Tarot Astrology Ascension report was helpful and insightful. If you'd like to work with me, especially for your own personal tarot astrology, my website information is below with all of my services. Please be aware we are at the end of November. Come the new year, I will not be taking on too many new tarot astrology orders, and I especially will be cutting back on the full rebirth tarot astrology reports. So if that's something that you wanted to do, now would be the time to talk to me about it, even if you want to come up with a payment plan or something, because come 2024, I'm slowing down with writing out those full rebirth reports. They take a lot out of me a lot of the time. They are 40-page personal channeled writings. They're mini books for yourself and your soul journey and your activations. And I love doing it, but it's very energetically taxing. So come 2024, I'm slowing down in that area. So if you're interested, you can check out the information on my website. And with all bookings, you can email me through the website, through the contact page, or solarah@solarah.info or dailyalkhemy@gmail. My emails are also in the description box below. If you would like to join me on Substack, that link is there too. If you would like to donate to my channels, either one, and my work, the link for that is down below too. And very important also, please check out the podcast that I was a guest on, Grand Rising Experience with Nicole Connor. I did put it in my on the community board. The link is there. I will also link it in the description box below. But Nicole had me on as a guest, and I had just such a beautiful time talking all things Ascension and even the planets. So make sure to check me out over there, and to check out Nicole and her work and what she's doing through the Grand Rising experience also. So I'm sending you guys so much love, joy, peace, beauty. Soak up the freedom that wants to come through this full moon in Gemini, because it's definitely there to liberate us into a higher mental consciousness and frequency, so we can recover who we truly are and have always been, and we were completely lied to. So I will see you again soon. Until next time, be well.